Hey everyone, welcome to another Modern Deck Tech. Today, Grixis Zombies. That's right, Grixis. Not black-red, not black-blue, not mono-black, Grixis. Can't wait to show you this list. It's deck number 2 of 2 for the Halloween month. Deck Tech Marathon, I guess? Is that it? You guys all voted for this, so here we go. Last week was Red Green Werewolves. This week, Grixis Zombies. Before I get into the list, of course, as usual, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate a subscription today. Hit that subscribe button down below and that like button. Believe it or not, I always say the same thing, but those clicks really go a long way in having others find my channel. And at least 50% of you are not subscribed, according to YouTube statistics. So if you could hit that subscribe button today, I would really, really appreciate it. Alright, the list. Here we go. Grixis Zombies. This initially started off as mono black. I was going to be really boring with it. I was playing a whole bunch of black zombies, basically. And then I said, okay, maybe we'll splash for blue and play Diregraf Captain. And then I went back and forth, and then I said, hey, let's try red-black, and let's try Dreadhorde Butcher. That seems like a fun card. And then I went back, and I said, you know what? Why do I have to limit myself to 1 or 2 colors? So I went Grixis. And oh boy, once I went Grixis, I didn't go back. This deck was surprisingly fun to play. I thought of the two between Red Green Werewolves and this one was going to be, I don't know, less exhilarating, but believe it or not, I had a ton of fun. I still prefer werewolves, but I had a lot of fun with this deck. This deck puts a lot of pressure on your opponents relatively quickly, and they just don't know what to do. A nice side effect of this deck, which I noticed a lot in a lot of the matches that I played, is your opponents incorrectly side against you, or at least partially. They see zombies, they see Gravecrawler, which is like literally the only card in the deck that really cares about the graveyard, and they say, okay, there's graveyard shenanigans going on here, we're going to bring in the Graveyard Hate. Bring it on. Graveyard Hate does literally nothing to this deck. Worst case scenario, they get rid of Gravecrawler. Who cares? Okay, it's only like a small part of the overall strategy. So this is just a nice side effect. I really like that. I know, you know, historically zombie decks did fool around a lot more with the graveyard. This one doesn't. This one doesn't care. So bring it on. Bring on the incorrect sideboarding. It definitely gooses the win rates of this deck. Overall, at the end of the day, I mean, if you've played your aggro decks, this is going to be the same type of strategy. You know, swing, tap to the right, swing, and deal damage to your opponent and kill him off. There's no really any alt win conditions here. The zombie package that I've selected is very carefully picked. I went through a lot of zombie options, a lot of lord options, played around with numbers a lot. Just take my word for it, a lot. And this is the final list that I came up with. Super happy with Champion of the Perished in terms of his performance. Yes, you could abuse it a lot more with generating zombie tokens with other cards. Those all felt too cute and too build around me for a zombie deck that had to be somewhat competitive and modern. That's why I deck tech these decks. So this is the actual list I ended up with. No zombie token shenanigans. I was going to say for the most part, but at all, basically. You also have some permission in here. You have some removal. A lot of things that really throw your opponents off. I've had a lot of people compliment on this deck saying that's a really cool zombie deck. So, you know, don't take my word for it. Take my opponents who all lost to it. But, you know, so this is the list. Take a look at it. I strongly suggest you try it out. And, you know, let me know down below what you think about the zombie selection, what you would put instead. Let's get to the synergies real quick. So, Champion of the Perished, as I said, overperformed in my experience. Way more than I thought it would. You know, Champion of the Parish obviously is the white version. It's been around forever in humans decks, and I really think that Champion of the Parish refreshes the zombie tribal in modern. Now, I know it's obviously not going to be as good as humans. Humans have way more support, so I'm not going there, but Champion of the Parish definitely adds a lot of oomph, let's say, to this deck, and there's a lot of other cards that incidentally work fine by themselves, but also help Champion of the Parish. Giralf Messenger has Undying. It comes back to the battlefield, so it has 2 triggers from Champion of the Parish. Gravecrawler can keep coming back and coming back and coming back, and each time it does, and it's really cheap to do it, Champion of the Parish gets bigger. Plague Belcher, which is just a nice 5/4 menace creature, you know, if you target, for example, Gravecrawler or Giralf's Messenger, they die, they come back, and boom, Champion of the Parish gets incidentally bigger. So I've had 5/5, 6/6, even 7/7 Champions of the Parish. I think a couple of times I had 8/8s, and your opponents don't know what to do with them. There's a lot of creatures that are worth removing in this deck, especially the lords. So they're not sure, should I remove the lord, should I move Champion of the Parish? Everything really works very smoothly together. And yeah, Champion of the Parish is really a card you want to be playing with in a zombie deck going forward in Modern. Other synergies, the obvious ones, Diregraph Captain and Death Baron obviously being the lords of choice. There were a couple other lords I could have chosen that are zombies that are, you know, 3 CMC, but these are the ones I settled on because they honestly are just the best ones that fit the best with this deck. So obviously these benefit all your creatures because all your creatures are zombies. They also benefit Dreadhorde Butcher. Now, hear me out here. Dreadhorde Butcher is a 1/1 haste for 2. Not necessarily the best rate in Modern, but I was sure that it wasn't going to work out. I was going to cut it. But no, believe me, Dreadhorde Butcher, if it survives, and your opponents will ignore it sometimes, and sometimes they also ignore its last ability. Let's really read it real quick. When Dreadhorde Butcher dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Any target. Creature, player, planeswalker. They often miss that. Dreadhorde Butcher becomes a 2/2, a 3/3. You know, sometimes it's boosted because of Death Baron or Diregraph. Boom, it dies. And now you're bolting your opponent, or you're bolting a creature, or whatever it is. They don't see it coming. And if they ignore it because they're targeting other creatures, fine. It's going to hit in for 1 and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And if they ignore it for too long, it's going to become a huge problem. So, you know, having a 4/4 Dreadhorde Butcher is like a big issue. Your opponent's going to have to, you know, decide, do I kill it? And then you get to, you know, nuke one of their creatures, or do I let it go, but then they lose 4 life? It's an issue. I was really impressed with Dreadhorde Butcher. I suggest you try it out. This was actually a really fun zombie to play with. I really thought it was going to be the crappy card in this deck, and no, it worked really well. So, synergies-wise, everything else, I think, makes sense for anyone who's played a tribal deck. Alright, the matchups. This is what I think, how this deck fares against the different types of archetypes that are always floating around Modern. For combo decks, I think it's pretty even. You do have Counter Squall in the main, and you have some room in the side. Plus, you're playing blue, so if you really wanted to, you could have like a transformative sideboard and go really permission heavy. Generally speaking, though, I think it's pretty much 50-50 when you're playing against these decks. They definitely don't expect Counter Squall or any kind of permission, even if they see blue in a zombie deck. So that catches them off guard, and yeah, it's just really fun when you win. Mid-range decks, again, I think it's 50-50. It really depends on how early they get rid of your Aether Vial, or if you have an early Aether Vial, or if you have the right disruption in hand at the right time to, you know, kind of stop their main game plan, or at least their early game plan. Once you have the Aether Vial engine going and you have creatures entering the battlefield every turn, and you're going wider and wider, mid-range decks really have issues keeping up. You are playing black, red, and blue. That gives you access to a lot of powerful cards in Modern, in the main and in the side. So generally speaking, your mid-range matchup is even. Aggro decks, your favorite. I was shocked. I thought this would be the weaker aggro deck, but no, aggro decks seem to have an issue with the zombie deck. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I was not unsure early on, but now I'm super confident when I play aggro decks that we could keep up. So definitely favored. Control decks, I think it's even. Again, you have a lot of cheap creatures. You have a lot of, you know, creatures that could get in even after board wipes. Aether Vial really helps working around permission. You know, and working around even, you know, hard removal, let's say if it was a lightning bolt or something like that. So I think overall the control matchup is even. Tron, totally favored. You have a lot of sideboard hate, main board hate as well. Counter Squall is hilarious. They don't see that coming, I assure you. Tron is relatively not a problem. Last but not least, borderline magic, so Dredge, Mill, so on and so forth. Generally favored. Again, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. You go wide and tall. So, you know, you could keep up with those Dredge engines, unless they go nuts on turn 1 or turn 2, in which case it's going to be hard for you. But if you could slow them down early on, they're going to have trouble catching up. And I think, generally speaking, this deck does really well against borderline magic decks. And that's it for Grixis Zombies, deck 2 of 2 in this Halloween month that you all voted on. I really had fun playing with this deck, grinding with it, whittling it down to this final card selection. And just hear me out. Try it out. I'm sure you will have fun. Local FNM, or even if you want to be a bit more competitive with it, your opponents will side incorrectly against you. They will not expect the counter squalls. They just don't see any of it coming. And they have a lot of difficult decisions to make when it comes to removal. So try it out. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about it. There are 5 matchups going up today. Yes, 5. So stay tuned for those all MTGO matches starting within an hour of this deck going up. So yeah, if you want to see some gameplay with this deck, you're going to really want to stay tuned for those. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy my content in general, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really goes a long way. It helps me out a lot. If you want to become a member here on YouTube, hit that join button, which should be in and around that subscribe button. Check out the different membership tiers and the different perks you get at each tier. You know, I'd love to have you as part of my YouTube community officially as a member. And I think the membership tiers are pretty interesting, have some cool little features in there. So check it out. I would really appreciate your support. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, share my content on social media, watch my content start to finish like you're doing right now. It really does go a long way, so thank you for that. Lastly, if you want to become a patron, check out the Patreon link in the description of this video. Check out the Patreon rewards program. In a nutshell, you give me money every month. I use that money to buy sealed product, which I open up on this channel, and then I give you back that money in the form of rares and mythics at the end of every year. The longer you're a patron, the more rares and mythics you get. Basically, one rare mythic for every month that you're a patron. And the value of those rares are anything really between $3 and $15. Some of them go even higher, as you know. So even if you average out about $5 per rare, that's $5 a month, you get your money back, but odds are you'll make more. Anyway, all that information is on Patreon. There's a video on there that explains it all. We really appreciate your support either way. Thanks, and have a good one.